Good morning. My name is Miguel Gonzalez, and I'm a certified retirement counselor with over 20 years of experience helping clients in retirement income planning, overseeing investment of funds, and designing retirement plans. Let's talk about investing as a couple by sharing investment goals and how to reach them. In a perfect world, both halves of a couple share the same investment goals and agree on the best way to try to reach them. It does not always work that way though. Disagreements about money are often a source of friction between couples. You may be risk averse, while your spouse may be more comfortable investing more aggressively, or vice versa. How can you bridge that gap? First, define your goals. Making good investment decisions is difficult if you do not agree on what you're investing for. So make sure you're on the same page, or at least reading from the same book when it comes to your financial goal setting. Knowing where you're headed is the first step toward developing a roadmap for dealing jointly with investments. In some cases, you may have the same goals, but put a different priority on each one, or have two different time frames for a specific goal. For example, your spouse may want to retire as soon as possible, while you're anxious to accept a new job that means investment in your career, even if it means staying put or moving later. Coming to a general agreement on what your priorities are and roughly when you hope to achieve each one can greatly simplify the process of deciding how to invest. Make sure the game plan is clear. Making sure both spouses know how and, equally important, why their money is invested in a certain way can help minimize marital blowback if investment choices do not work out as anticipated. Second guessing rarely improves any relationship, so making sure that both partners understand from the beginning why an investment was chosen, as well as the risks and potential rewards, may help moderate the impulse to say, "I told you so," later. Investing does not have to be either or. A diversified portfolio should have a place for both conservative and more aggressive investments. Though diversification and asset allocation cannot guarantee a profit or protect against a loss, there are always ways to manage the type and level of risk you face, including the risk involved in bickering with your spouse. But it takes two. Aside from attempting to minimize marital strife, there's another good reason to make sure that both spouses understand how their money is invested and why. If only one person makes all the decisions, even if that person is more experienced investor, what if something were to happen to that individual? The other spouse might have to make decisions at a very vulnerable time, decisions that could have long-term consequences. So if you're the less experienced investor in the relationship, take the responsibility for making sure that you have at least a basic understanding of how your resources are invested. If you're suddenly the one responsible for all the decisions, you should at least know enough to protect yourself from fraud and or work effectively with a financial professional to help manage your money. If you're the more conservative investor of the two, if you're unfamiliar with a specific investment, research it. Though past performance is no guarantee of future returns, understanding how an investment typically has behaved in the past and how it compares to other investment possibilities could give you a better perspective on why your spouse is invested in it. Consider whether there are investments that are less aggressive than what your spouse is proposing, but still push to opt out of your comfort zone and might represent a promised position. For example, if you do not want to invest a large amount in a single stock, a mutual fund, or exchange traded ETF that invests in that sector might be a way to compromise. But before investing in a mutual fund or ETF, carefully consider its investment objective, risks, charges and expenses, which can be found in the prospectus available from the fund. Read it carefully before investing, or you could compromise by making a small investment, watching for an agreed upon length of time to see if it performs, and then deciding whether to invest more. Finally, there are many ways to offset, reduce, and manage the risk involved in a particular investment. Some investments benefit from circumstances that hurt others. For example, a natural disaster that cuts the profits of insurance companies could be beneficial for companies that are hired to rebuild in that area. Many investors try to hedge the risk involved in one investment by purchasing another with very different risks. However, remember that even though hedging could potentially reduce your overall level of risk, doing so probably would also reduce any return you might earn if the other investment is profitable. So what about if you're the more aggressive investor of the two? Listen carefully to your spouse's concerns. Additional information may increase a spouse's comfort level, but you won't know what it's needed if you automatically dismiss any objections. If you do not have the patience to educate your spouse, a third party who isn't emotionally involved might be a better way of explaining your point of view. Concealing the potential pitfalls of an investment about which you are enthusiastic could make future joint decisions more difficult if your credibility suffers because of a loss. As with most marital issues, transparency and trust are key. A spouse who's more cautious than you are may help you remember to assess the risk involved of keeping and trading costs down by reducing the churn in your portfolio. And remember that you could always make changes in your portfolio gradually. You might be able to help your spouse get more comfortable with taking on additional risk by spreading the investment over a period of time rather than investing a lump sum. If you are an impulse investor, try not to act until you can consult your partner or be prepared to face the consequences. What if you still cannot agree? It happens. You could consider investing a certain percentage of your combined resources aggressively and an equal percentage conservatively and a third percentage in the middle ground choice. That would give each partner equal input and control over the decision-making process, even if one has a larger balance in his or her individual account. Another approach is to use separate asset allocations to balance competing interests. If both spouses have workplace retirement plans, the risk taker could invest a larger portion of his or her plan in an aggressive choice and put a smaller portion in an option in which the spouse is more comfortable. The conservative spouse could invest the bulk of his or her money in a relatively conservative choice and put a smaller piece in a more aggressive selection on which both spouses agree. Or you could divide responsibility for specific goals. For example, the more conservative half could be responsible for the money that's being saved for a house down payment in 5 years. The other spouse could take the charge of long-term goals that may benefit from taking greater risk in pursuit of potentially higher returns. You could also consider setting a predetermined limit on how much risk the risk taker can put into riskier investments. Finally, a neutral third party with some expertise and a dispassionate view of a situation may be able to help you and your spouse work through your differences. Once again, this is Miguel Gonzalez with Cortburg Retirement Advisors. Please take a moment to click the like icon and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to receive a weekly video podcast every Monday morning. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next week.